Presentation of dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
Coming up, what's your passion and are you pursuing it? A PBS series takes young people on a journey across the country to learn how some of our most successful leaders followed their dreams to get where they are today. That's Roadtrip Nation next on Dialogue. Stay tuned.
We've been on this road trip for 6 weeks. We started it because we had all these questions about what we wanted to do with our lives.
Where were you at our age?
What were some of the sacrifices you had to make? So I grew up in very segregated America. Every morning on that crowded bus, I always had a seat to myself because nobody sat with me.
We get to see and talk to a lot of people that are doing atypical things.
I've never been outside of Southern California. That's the schooling I feel like I need. It's that life school.
Did you even know that something like this could exist?
No. It's like someone just literally just tapped me on the shoulder and said, yeah, you're alive.
And welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. You were just listening to a clip from a PBS series called Roadtrip Nation. The program, which begins its 9th season this fall, aims to inspire young people to follow their dreams, even if that takes them on a non-traditional path. As you saw, several teams of 20-somethings spend 6 weeks in an RV crossing the country, interviewing people who are making their living pursuing their passions. Now, over the next few weeks, representatives of Roadtrip Nation will be sharing these inspirational stories with high school students in Idaho. It's all in an effort to expand the students' horizons and encourage them to stay in school. The outreach project and the series are the brainchild of Mike Marriner, who joins me now in the studio. Welcome.
Thanks.
And also joining us is Ricafort, who was on Series 6 of Roadtrip Nation and will be spending time motivating students in Idaho. It's nice to have you here, Ray.
Good to be here.
Now, Roadtrip Nation is teaming up with the College Board for its Idaho trip. That's a nonprofit organization started in 1900 to get students ready for college. It's best known for the tests it's developed, including the SATs and the AP exam. And joining me from the College Board is Angela Garcia, the Executive Director of SAT Program Outreach. Welcome to Idaho.
Thank you, Marcia.
And one note, because this is a taped program, there will be no phone calls. Well, Mike, I have to start with you. This was a dream of yours 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And you and your friends had this idea to go across the country interviewing leaders in their respective fields. You traveled 15,000 miles, interviewed 80 leaders. At the time, what you said when you produced the documentary, The Open Road, which was about this journey, you were trying to combat the noise. Mm-hmm. What was or is the noise?
Yeah, the noise was something that came out of that road trip that we heard time and time again from the people that we interviewed, which was saying that, you know, when you're growing up, it's important to explore the world and kind of figure out who you are and what you're passionate about, but at the same time, you have to be careful of shedding the noise that's around you, like, you know, parents, family, friends, trying to convince you to do things that aren't really natural to what really matters most to you. Or it could be, you know, kids who grew up in the California Central Valley where we do a lot of work, who's, you know, a 9th grade boy whose older brother is in a gang and is trying to get that kid to join a gang. But inside he might really be passionate about, you know, becoming an attorney or, you know, film or being a film director. The noise is different for everyone in different settings and different situations. And I think that that was just one of the big things we learned on that trip. So.
And you set off because you were kind of confused about what your path might be in terms of what you should be, and had this idea, well, I'll just talk to a lot of really cool people across the country and maybe it'll help me understand my path better.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much that simple. It's not like we started out by trying to make a PBS series or do 9 seasons on PBS or write a book about it or create an educational movement or, you know, we were just, and I think that's been one of the keys to Roadtrip Nation. It's been like, it's been honest, you know, and true. Like it didn't start as a business plan, you know. It started with us being in school and not really knowing what we wanted to do and not feeling that a lot of the career exploration resources were out there that were really doing it, you know. Like, I mean, there's programs like the Myers-Briggs that definitely play their part and play their role, but at some point you just need something more humanized. And so we thought, what if we could build this road trip project and go meet with people who are doing interesting things and ask them, like, how did they get to where they are? Like, where were you at when you were our age? And just kind of, you know, it was that simple. And
you're kind of an example now, all these years later, of the fact that you can take a passion and turn it into a business. You have, I think, at least 35 employees now with Roadtrip Nation, and groups crisscrossing the country, and as we'll talk about in a moment, outreach. But when you look back at that original trip, is there a takeaway, a main takeaway for you out of that back in 2001? I mean, it was such an amazing time to be, two weeks before you left, September 11th happened, right? So everything was just topsy-turvy.
People were really reflecting on their lives and their purpose in the world. And I think one person we met in northern Vermont, he was the head of a design firm for Burton snowboards. He said, when you magnify what it is you believe in, the world will conspire to support you on your path. And that was a really powerful statement, and it just kind of made us think deeper about what are the things that we believe in, and when we find things that we believe in, how do we kind of wear it on our shoulder and really, and at that time, like, what we believed in was giving our friends or other youth in our generation the opportunity to explore what was possible for their future.
Because it's okay to be confused, isn't it? I mean, you don't have to know at age, it seems to be so much pressure now. You don't have to know at age 18 or even 19, or, you know, in my case it was even later, what you want to do, right? It's okay to be confused. But it's not okay not to explore, because the world is out there for you. So the mission has continued, and you have these groups that are crisscrossing the country. And Ray, you were privileged enough to be on one that actually went to New Zealand, Series 6 of Roadtrip Nation. And now you're an employee of Roadtrip Nation, so we'll talk about that in a moment. You had some incredible adventures in New Zealand, including bungee jumping. Let's take a look at that.
Take a wee walk out to the edge.
For me, I realized if I thought about it too much and I just kept analyzing about how this jump might go, then I probably wouldn't have jumped. But when I was just like, screw it, when I hear one, I'm just going to go for it because I know it's going to be good.
How do you feel?
It's going, yeah, it's going now.
On one, go for 5.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You've been playing that clip in schools and having to apologize for screaming it, but hey, you know what? 90% of the people who jump are gonna yell. I mean, really, it's scary. So part of the adventure is talking to people who have followed their passions. And in this instance, you were talking to a man who really invented the bungee jumping business, and he lives in New Zealand. But there was also something about actually taking that jump and the experiences that road trippers have that are important as well. Talk about what that bungee jumping experience did for you.
So in the interview with Henry Van Ash, he talks about bungee jumping kind of being this pinpoint in time, this intense moment of focus before you jump. And after you jump, it kind of, that release, that feeling of that yell of like, ah, it just kind of opens up to the rest of your life. And very much so, like ever since the road trip, the decisions that I make and these moments, it's not just held to this point on a platform where you jump off, but in different decisions that you make in life where you don't really know how this is going to go. This isn't something I've done before. And you're wondering and having all these questions and these fears.
So you're kind of on the edge.
Yes, exactly.
So to speak, in other situations in life.
Very much so. And I think having gone through this and interviewed people that have been there, and you know that you're getting advice and you're speaking to these people who are doing the things that you look up to, and they've been there, they've jumped off before, and they're telling you it's okay, it's going to be okay, and this is the way you should do it, or at least these are the steps to get there. And it's something that makes you just feel so much more at ease when you start taking the jump and you start making these big decisions for yourself.
So you were a little indecisive when you went on this trip, when you were picked to go. You were kind of in between things. How did the trip change your life? Did it help you on your path, help you decide what you wanted to do?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me before, I thought about my passions, and it was people called it idealistic, like I want to change the world. And I think for me, growing up, not having maybe the best support for some of my passions and pursuits, left me feeling like that was something I wanted to give off to people after receiving that on the road trip, to empower somebody, to make sure a student never feels like someone can tell them that they can't do it and that that's okay, and that it's not okay to feel that way. And so being able to combine that with road trip after having such an experience that just kind of shifted my mindset and just my thinking in life, and to be able to combine that with empowering other students and telling them yes, yeah, like it is there. Do you want it? Can you go for it? Will you work hard for it? Are you willing to take the steps to get there? Then yes, you can do it, and it doesn't matter what anybody says. And like that in itself, there's no better feeling for me to say, this is what I do for my work, this is what I do for my life, and it comes directly from the experiences that I've had and the experiences I had on the road in New Zealand. So,
and some of the experiences on the road itself can be challenging. I mean, they're driving the RV by themselves. Sometimes it breaks down. Once you had an engine fire. I mean, but it's all a learning experience. You're driving on the other side of the road in New Zealand. So just the act itself of taking care of yourself for 4 to 6 weeks in a big vehicle is a learning experience, yeah, and getting along with people.
Totally, and also building the trip. Like, it's not like we're producing the trip and setting up their interviews. Like, they spend 4 months planning their itinerary, cold calling people that are going to interview on their trip, identifying what types of people they want to meet with, identifying their own interests, social pressures they might be facing before the trip even begins. So there's a big sense, like, Ray's trip was Ray's trip, you know, like, we weren't booking the interviews for him. Like, he was doing the cold calling, he was doing the research. So we see that as a big part of it too, is just the cold calling, you know.
Well, one thing I have to say that I like about the program is it's a, quote, reality show, but there's not all that sniping that you normally see on a reality TV program, which I think can give a message sometimes to young people that it's okay to go out and do that to each other. So, you know, you're keeping it on the educational level, which I think is nice. Now, you're here in Idaho to do outreach, and Ray, you'll be traveling around and sharing some of these motivational stories, including the ones that you filmed in New Zealand. And those include 2 interviews with Idahoans. So let's take a look at those.
Roadtrip Nation will be in Idaho, inspiring students through the stories of Idahoans like Chief Allen.
Sometimes as a young adult, you worry, what does the future hold? Education was my key to help me and to help my people and help my family. You can do anything if your heart's in the right place.
I finished college and I was like, all right, Mom, Dad, I'm going to take a year off, climb and ski. And those were things that really moved me. It wasn't like I even had a choice. I had to do it.
Was this the ultimate goal, or were you kind of like,
no.
I have an escape plan just in case this doesn't work?
No idea where I was going. I was running blind. I just commit and then figure it out, because you can't get anywhere unless you commit to something.
So that seems to be, those 2 interviews encapsulate some of the themes that I noticed in this series. One is the importance of education, however you get that to keep going. And the other is committing to something, you know, once you find it, being near people who share your passion, doing whatever you need to do, really, to get there. So you'll be showing these interviews and others as you travel around the state. You have quite an ambitious agenda. You're going to be all the way from here, where you kicked off your event today at Capitol High School in Boise, all the way up to Sandport in North Idaho. Before we turn to Angela and talk about the partnership with College Board, what do you hope people, students, get out of this outreach event?
I hope the main thing is just kind of a spirit of exploration. I mean, a lot of kids when they're in high school, you know, it's not important to kind of figure out what do you want to do with the rest of your life when you're in high school, but it is important to explore the things that matter most to you and explore the things that interest you and that you might be passionate about, and just have a broader perspective of what's possible.
What if you don't know? What if you're like, or the opposite, what if you're interested in everything? I know that in one of your series, the guy was like, oh, I can't make up my mind. And I was kind of that way too, so I went into journalism because you can do different subjects. But
yeah.
What if you don't quite know what your passion is yet?
Just test things out. I mean, I think that's one thing that we hear a lot in the interviews is, or just that Roadtrip Nation demonstrates it all, is that you can just call people and ask them for a cup of coffee. You don't need to be doing Roadtrip Nation to be in a green motorhome going across the country. I think one thing that we learned on our first road trip is that, like, adults can relate with that time in their life where they didn't know what they wanted to do before they were a, you know, talk show host or an executive at College Board or a lawyer or a doctor. Like, everyone was 18, 19, 20 years old, lost, working 2 jobs, trying to deal with financial aid, and didn't know what they wanted to do. But a lot of times when students, and we thought this way too, look at adults, they think, oh, they always had it figured out. But in reality, they can relate with that period in their life. And so we find that they're willing to share their stories with young people. And so we think that students don't spend enough time reaching out to adults and just inquiring about their stories.
Well, in fact, we have a clip that illustrates that. Part of your curriculum is to encourage young people to, you know, not everyone can go on a 6-week road trip, but to just interview people in their own backyard, so to speak. Let's take a listen to that.
When you were younger, say about our age, could you see yourself ever doing this career?
How did you overcome the obstacles that life thrown at you?
Where were you at our age? Where were you when you were 16, 17, and 18?
Did anyone doubt you in your process of trying to become a basketball player, trying to become Secretary of Education?
Oh, sure. Your people doubt you all the time. And so the question is, do you let those doubts stop you, or do you listen to them and take those weaknesses and turn them into strengths?
I interviewed an NBA player. I interviewed the president of NBC News, and I didn't interview them as their job. No, I didn't interview an occupation. I interviewed a person, just to see what their fears were 10 years ago. Do they still have fears? Do they still worry about anything in their lives? What's their successes? What's their failures? I mean, just conducting the interviews was so eye-opening and making me realize there's so many things that I could be, and I have so many choices. I have so many choices of things that can make me happy.
That was Andrew Galarza, the young man from the Bronx, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where is he now?
He's still in school. So that road trip, or that clip was just a few months ago, last September.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a big new part of Roadtrip Nation that we've collaborated with the College Board on as well, is developing a high school curriculum where, like you said, like you don't need to take a road trip cross country in a green RV. So we developed a curriculum by which students are guided in their classes through a project-based learning opportunity to build their own Roadtrip Nation projects and interview people in their own areas. So like Andrew is from the Bronx, but a lot of the kids we work with in the Bronx have never been south of 125th Street. So a road trip for Andrew was going into Manhattan and interviewing some of these people. They go through the same arc as Ray went through, the cold calling, the researching, and in many cases the impact is even bigger because of their starting point.
Well, a nice segue to talk about the College Board. Now, people think of the College Board as just focused on getting into college, the SATs, the AP, as I mentioned, that you design. Why did you team up with Roadtrip Nation to do events like this month-long tour through Idaho? The series is not necessarily focused on going to college. It's about pursuing your passions.
Exactly, and I think that that's a very good question. And what really drew us to Roadtrip Nation was that their mission is very much aligned with our mission, which is connecting students to college and also success and beyond. And part of that is taking the necessary steps. So I would take, the examples of stepping onto the path. And for some kids, they don't know that's an option. I'm the first in my family to go to college and didn't know that it was an option until somebody took an interest in me. So we have a very awesome responsibility of trying to inspire students to really pursue college. And with the help of Roadtrip Nation, we have an ability to extend our reach and reach out to students more directly as well as their families.
Now, as part of the new graduation requirements in Idaho, and part of this outreach effort is to lead up to what's called SAT Day on April 18th. And this is a big new thing in Idaho. The graduation requirements say that the class that graduates in 2013, which is next year, so 11th graders this year, must take a college entrance exam. And the state has contracted with the College Board to the tune of about $920,000. And we have become an SAT state. And so the state will pay, yes, for all 11th graders to take the SAT. And it's going to be done in school, not on a weekend like I had to, and I had to fork over money as well to take it. This is a huge change.
Absolutely. It's really a great opportunity, and it dovetails quite nicely with our mission about increasing access and equity for students. For many students, even coming in on a Saturday was a challenge. They had work and family commitments that kept them from being able to attend. So with this commitment and this collaboration with the state, we're doing a couple things and bringing the test closer to them, but also in their school that they go to every day. So they're nesting, and they have their teachers, their counselors, everybody rallying around to help make sure that they're as successful as they possibly can.
Now, there's a lot of talk right now about too much testing. You know, with No Child Left Behind, and some teachers have complained that all they're doing is preparing their children, or their students rather, for tests, not real-world experiences like we just saw. How do you respond to that? Now this is going to be a mandatory, all 11th graders must take the SAT in Idaho, unless, of course, they have an individualized education plan or there's a learning disability. So how do you respond to this kind of sense that, just another test?
Well, actually, we've been working very closely with educators here in Idaho, and because it's testing and it's really trying to understand reading, writing, and math, and where the student happens to be in that learning arc, and what they need to do to help them get not only college ready but also career ready. Those are very basic skills that you need both in school as well as in your work life.
Now, there's another test that can be taken, right? If they want to take the SAT or they don't feel they can, called the Accuplacer, is that correct?
Right, well the majority of the 11th graders in Idaho will indeed take the SAT, but for a small set of students, and that's with the great counsel from their teachers and their families, may indeed take the Accuplacer test.
And that is it a little easier? Or?
No, it's actually to help them in understanding where they need to be placed from a 12th grade perspective, and then in additional coursework it's a diagnostic test to place them in that coursework in the 12th grade.
Now, there also has been some news about how some students have been deemed put in remedial education because of the test when they don't necessarily need to be there. So how are you feeling about the test as a benchmark of where students are when parents look at these scores when they come back? It's a big test. It's 3 hours and 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. I remember being anxious taking the SAT. So it's a big thing, and some students may not score well the first time around.
So part of the process, and then the work that we're doing with the Department of Education, is also there's an online course that helps a student get ready and practice.
And that's free?
That is free, absolutely. It's part of the collaboration with the Department of Education, and by becoming familiar with the test format, the way the questions are being asked, in addition to the online course, there's question of the day, and so they get little bite sizes to understand the structure. And we're testing the skills that they're learning in school, the reading, writing, and math. So, part of it is that preparation, and, many of the students that we've been meeting with have indeed been taking advantage of these resources to get ready for April 18th.
So this is a graduation requirement.
Yes.
If they don't take it, they can't graduate?
It's one of the things that the state is asking for, and the state can also provide you with some of those additional details.
Let's talk a little bit, as we start to wrap up, about going to college in general. There are folks out there who say, oh, it's not worth the amount of money now, the loans that I have to take out. Or we've even heard on the campaign trail a little bit of kind of the snob factor, like if you go to college, it's kind of hoity-toity. Talk a little bit about what you see. You said you were the first to go to college.
Yes.
The value you see of college in the United States.
Well, there's many positive outcomes that come from having, a degree from a college, any type of college that you go to. In fact, there's a lot of research that's out there that within the first, you can increase your earning power by $22,000 a year. So over the lifespan of your career, it more than pays for that opportunity that you're taking that step forward towards college. There's also other additional benefits that are just as positive, whether it's a stronger community. You have a stronger voice, you understand better because you've had exposure to the issues, the topics, other points of view. There certainly is the ability to your earning potential, better health, better access to resources. So there's many reasons why you want to pursue a college education. And I believe that, based upon some of the national statistics, 2 out of 3 jobs that are out there that are available today, and actually in the state of Idaho, will require some sort of post-secondary education.
Both of you are college graduates, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel that, I know you don't push it as part of the series, but do you feel that it is helpful for students to go on to college?
Yeah, every kid should have a chance to go to some degree of post-secondary pathway. And one of the studies that we've been looking to as we venture into education and try to bring Roadtrip Nation to more kids is there's a study done by the Gallup Student Survey that said that only 50% of kids in American schools have hope for their futures. And that's one of the things that we're feeling on the ground is what are the reasons why kids are not going to college or getting into their first year of college and then dropping out. And what we feel is because kids don't see the relevancy. They don't have hope for their future. So what Roadtrip Nation is trying to do is to kind of inspire and spark in them a sense of what's possible and give them a deeper reflection of who they are and what type of post-secondary pathway is right for them. And that's where the collaboration with the College Board is great, because we don't want to just inspire them and lead them to a cliff and say good luck. We're not about college preparedness and that kind of thing. But at the same time, we think the partnership with the College Board is great because we get to refer them to resources that can help them take the next step. At the same time, College Board knows that they're not cool, that kids don't think the SAT is cool or whatever, but that's what great too. The thing with us is that we respect that they're a nonprofit organization that is trying to help, kids with
you were
college.
saying to me before that you've had other offers of partnerships besides PBS and College Board with MTV and other places, and you're trying to stay on a certain type of mission.
We are super discerning with who we partner with, how we bring Roadtrip Nation to the world. And one of the big things that we look at is what is someone's end objective, with the collaboration. And, at the end of the day, there are some people that want leads for sponsorships, want to have, eyeballs like MTV. I mean, that's ultimately why we came to public media, public television as well, because of that. And College Board's the same thing. At the end of the day, they're just trying to help inspire kids for their futures.
Ray, as you go around the state, you may find people that are interested in getting the opportunity that you did to be on a road trip. How would they do that? What's the audition process like?
Yeah, so they can go to roadtripnation.com, and then we have an apply page there. As long as you're 17 to 35, the applications open up in September, and it's actually for the trip the following summer. So we're actually in the process right now of picking our final teams for this summer. So if you're interested, or roadtripnation.com, and then you can go to our apply page. And we also have indie trips, which are independent grants, where we actually offer trips for students that might not be able to go, like you said, for 6 weeks, but want to take a trip, maybe visit another community or another area of Idaho and find people in their local communities. Or
it's like a mini grant. Say
Exactly.
You're interested in hairdressing. You want to go on the road and interview a number of hairstylists. And
Yeah.
so you can apply for a mini grant.
Absolutely. I think there's a misconception when you hear Road Trip Nation that it's about the traveling and it's about physically going somewhere. And while that's a component of it, I'd say by far the most important part of it all is the learning experience and the stories and the sharing of that.
Well, we're going to get into this more in the Web Extra, but what I thought was interesting is as we're looking at people, adults losing their jobs in this economy, many of them now, if they look at it as an opportunity, are having an opportunity to maybe retrain and develop a passion that for themselves that they didn't have in their job before. And you talked about the quote that inspired you. As we close, is there something that you remember from your trip that really stuck with you, a piece of advice?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go back to the Henry Van Ash quote that I was saying about that intense moment of focus and how it opens up to the rest of your life. And for me, it was actually post my road trip. My dad had been sick with cancer. And actually the day after I got back from the road trip, my sister had called me and said, hey, Dad's cancer is back and you're going to have to move back home. And I remember that moment spending, the final days with him and realizing that after he passed away, that was that pinpoint in time. There was that moment of intense focus that it was time to make decisions after that. And how do I want to define my road in life? How do I want to be remembered? Or what is it that I want to leave on this world when I have to leave? And that was a huge cause and a huge point of reflection for me in my life. And I took that advice to heart. And for me, it was, then now more than ever, I need to push this thing that I believe that students need to feel empowered. Students need to feel that they can achieve and they can do these things when they feel so strongly about it.
Well, thank you very much for talking with me. You've been listening to two members of Road Trip Nation and Angela Garcia from the College Board talk about Road Trip Nation's trip through Idaho. I'm Marcia Franklin. For more information, check out our website by going to idahoptv.org and clicking on Dialogue. We'll have a web extra with some additional information on some of the inspirational information or quotes that you got during your trip. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho. Check out our website, like us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter.